she stepped up as my wife and handled that. And it's been many times where I've been at my lowest, and she's always been the strongest to get me back up to like, get back out there. You gotta get back out there and do what you do. Don't worry about what's happening over here. I'm gonna handle that.
It started as a low-key whisper floating through VIP lounges before it exploded across LA. The talk wasn't just that Snoop Dogg was angry with Sean Diddy Combs. The rumor was that he played a role in bringing him down. People close to the situation say when the FBI closed in on Diddy in late 2024, it didn't feel random, it felt personal. And the spark wasn't money or business, it was a betrayal that struck the one thing Snoop protects harder than his entire legacy, his wife, Shantae Broaddus. Sources say by the time Diddy was arrested on September 16, 2024, the two icons hadn't spoken in months. Insiders now claim the fallout reached a breaking point when Snoop uncovered what he believed was the ultimate violation, that Diddy had been involved with Shantae not just once, but over several years during those lavish invite-only parties that later became central to federal charges. So when Combs was convicted in November 2025 and sentenced to just over 4 years behind bars, one question spread fast. How did prosecutors get such detailed behind-the-scenes intel on those gatherings? One theory dominates the rumor mill. Snoop handed them the map. For decades, the two giants moved in the same circles, both rooted in hip-hop's golden era. But sources from both sides say behind the smiles was a quiet tension. Snoop built his brand on loyalty and image. Diddy thrived on power and spectacle. And when the federal case finally erupted, racketeering, transporting women, and what prosecutors called degrading private encounters, it was Snoop's alleged cooperation that reportedly pushed the investigation from whispers into a full-blown takedown.
Well, she just a strong black woman off the tippy. You know what I mean?
But this story doesn't begin in a courtroom. It begins with a marriage. Shantae Broaddus, a Long Beach native, met Calvin Broaddus long before the world knew the name Snoop Dogg. They were teens at Long Beach Poly, went to prom together, and married in June 1997. Nearly 30 years later, they stood as one of the few seemingly unbreakable couples in an industry fueled by temptation. She stayed beside him as he rose from local rapper to global icon. Through the fall of Death Row Records, through reinvention as a businessman and family man. By 2021, she officially became his manager, overseeing his TV, gaming, and spirits ventures. Snoop often called her his final gut check, the last voice he listens to before any major move.
You see, Snoop Dogg saying he owns Death Row is no different than me saying Tupac was alive because I had the unreleased Tupac music. It ain't no different, bro.
That's why the alleged betrayal hit like a shockwave. According to sources, Snoop's world started to fracture in early 2024 when Suge Knight, calling from prison, began poking at him on his podcast, Collect Call. In February, Knight posted a photo of Shantae in Hawaii with another man, adding, "I'll pray your wife stops going to Hawaii with other men." This came just after Snoop publicly said he was praying Knight would find peace. Within hours, Knight's comments section exploded. Some saw it as a bitter jab from behind bars. Others believed Knight knew exactly where to strike. Behind closed doors, Snoop reportedly went quiet, focused, controlled, and cold. Then, just weeks later, federal agents raided Diddy's homes in LA and Miami as investigators widened a probe into what prosecutors described as a pattern of control and exploitation. Cassie Ventura's lawsuit, it already detailed how Diddy organized private events, known in court as freak-offs, centered on coercion and humiliation. Testimony during the 2025 trial confirmed several high-profile guests had attended. What baffled many was how investigators suddenly had names, footage, and financial records tied to those nights.
Same kind of extortion that we heard when Cassie took the stand and testified on that airplane ride back from France Diddy said, you don't do a freak off, I'm going to release one of the freak off videos that you are profiled in and humiliate you.
That trail kept circling back to Snoop. Yes, he'd attended Diddy's events in the past, but insiders say he pulled away after 2020 as tension grew between their camps. Those close to him say he guarded his image carefully, and Shantae's even more. He'd survived controversies before, a dismissed 2013 lawsuit, influencer accusations, non-stop rumors of old affairs. Through it all, Shantae remained his anchor. By late 2023, she was managing his The Voice bookings and expanding the Brodus Collection brand. So learning that another powerful man and a longtime associate may have crossed that line, one insider called it unforgivable. The turning point reportedly came in early 2024, right after Knight's Hawaii post reopened old wounds. Snoop's public talk of peace sounded calm, but sources say he was livid in private. Weeks later, word spread that federal agents had reached out to a major industry figure for insight into Diddy's inner circle. When Diddy was arrested that September, that unnamed source, described only as a longtime West Coast rapper turned businessman, wasn't hard to guess. But people close to the case insist this wasn't just revenge, it was survival. The investigation threatened to pull dozens of celebrities into the spotlight. Rumors swirled about video evidence featuring very recognizable faces. Cooperating, some believe, was Snoop's way of keeping his family out of the fire.
The turmoil and the stuff that I put her through in my journey on becoming successful, because I had no understanding of what I was doing to her, how I was hurting her.
Meanwhile, public sympathy leaned toward Shantae. For 27 years, she balanced loyalty with independence, the quiet architect behind Snoop's empire. He often called her the good to my bad. But by early 2025, that polished image began to crack under non-stop rumors. Shantae started appearing solo at industry events, posting cryptic captions about trust and truth. Fans questioned whether the marriage had been fragile long before the Diddy scandal. Knight reignited speculation on his podcast, hinting that the lady of the house wasn't always home. As the trial played out in New York, Snoop kept his distance, showing up just once in March 2025 at an NBC event and dodging every question about the case. What most people didn't realize was how deep his alleged involvement went. Prosecutors cited third-party communications backing witness claims about Diddy's private gatherings, saying they came from a trusted industry veteran. Insiders say those files included venue logs, guest lists, and timestamps stretching back nearly a decade. Now with Diddy serving his 4-year sentence at MDC Brooklyn, sources say Snoop is quietly relieved, not celebrating, just moving like the storm has passed. But that relief may come at a cost, because beneath Diddy's conviction sits one last question. If Snoop's motive was protecting his wife, why are there whispers he may have secrets of his own? Sources claim the same files that brought down Diddy contain more names not yet made public. And according to 2 former staffers, one of them belongs to someone far closer to Snoop than he ever expected.
You get to be the age that we at and you get to become as successful as we are, you have to start doing some things that matter for the future.
As investigators peel back the layers, it started to look like Snoop's cooperation with the feds wasn't driven by revenge alone. This felt calculated, a chess move to protect everything he'd spent decades building. When Snoop quietly acquired the Death Row Records catalog in 2023, fans called it a full-circle victory. Suge Knight saw something very different. From his prison cell, Knight claimed Snoop stole the label, insisting the paperwork was shaky and the deal was pushed through shadowy legal back channels. And let's be real, how fast that acquisition happened and how quickly Death Row was transformed into a clean, family-friendly digital brand definitely raised eyebrows. For someone once accused of glorifying street life, it looked like the perfect redemption story, unless that redemption came at someone else's expense. Industry insiders believe Snoop's willingness to work with prosecutors against Diddy was a defensive play, a way to lock down his brand before federal attention drifted anywhere near death row, especially since the same investigators chasing Diddy were already poking around other entertainment companies over questionable financial ties. By stepping in as a government ally instead of a potential target, Snoop may have protected both his freedom and his future. That's a move we expect from Fortune 500 CEOs, not rappers, but Snoop has always lived in both worlds. To the public, the former Dogfather had evolved into a sharp corporate operator, someone who knows exactly when to exit and exactly when to hand over information.
Your wife's been by you for your
She's
whole
your high
career.
school
Your high school sweetheart. She is.
You never leave home without it.
Yeah, that's right. But how has she kind of taken you on this journey? Tell us about her.
I think my wife has been my best friend for a couple of reasons. One is that she always understood who I was and who I needed to become.
And right at the center of this storm is Shantae Brodus. To the outside world, she appeared to be the loyal wife blindsided by betrayal. But people who've worked inside the Brodus operation say the reality is much more complex. As Snoop's official manager since 2021, Shantae wasn't just standing by, she was steering the ship. She helped greenlight major moves, pushed for the death row deal, shut down the OnlyFans idea, and guided Snoop toward TV deals and polished brand partnerships. When early allegations about Diddy began surfacing, sources say she urged Snoop to distance himself, legally and morally, from anything tied to Combs' lifestyle. That wording hits different now. Did she sense what was coming? Was she protecting her husband, or preparing a clean break to permanently separate Snoop's name from one of entertainment's most radioactive scandals? Some insiders take it even further, claiming Shantae played a role in organizing evidence that later reached investigators. A former Brodus office assistant says digital files and phone records were quietly underwent sorting throughout 2024, including communications from Diddy's event planners and promoters. If that's true, Shantae wasn't just a victim of betrayal, she was a strategist in the collapse of Diddy's empire. In that twist, the alleged target becoming the silent architect is exactly why this story refuses to fade.
Times you have him with a younger female, and there's a power dynamic there. A more impressionable girl is easier to reel in. Consent is between the people that are engaging, and I wasn't there in these situations to understand the consent.
It's also crucial to remember the case against Diddy wasn't built solely on Cassie Ventura's lawsuit or witness testimony. Prosecutors leaned on a dense web of corroboration, timelines, surveillance data, and logistical records tied to private events going back nearly 10 years. Some of those gatherings happened on the West Coast, at properties controlled by entertainment groups loosely linked to Snoop's wider network. Is it a coincidence that Snoop later bought one of those properties through a holding company in 2022? Maybe, but the timing sparks real questions about just how intertwined these two moguls were, and how carefully Snoop may have been disentangling himself before everything went nuclear. Meanwhile, Suge Knight turned his podcast into a megaphone. He teased a tell-all book, claiming it would expose who really betrayed whom. He painted Snoop's evolution from death row artist to global businessman as the result of deals made with devils in suits. Most brushed it off as prison bitterness until federal agents began subpoenaing financial records from former death row affiliates. Suddenly, Knight's rants didn't sound so unhinged. If that book ever sees daylight, it could detonate the industry, forcing a hard look at the alliances that shaped hip-hop's golden era.
Tick-tock, the clock is ticking on Diddy, because on Friday he finds out what his sentence is going to be, but today he found out what prosecutors would like that sentence to be, and it is vastly different from what his attorneys have suggested to the judge. Prosecutors want him to do 11 years, just over 11 years.
While Snoop quietly fortified his empire, Diddy's world unraveled in full view. At his 2025 sentencing, the mogul who once embodied excess stood defeated, telling the court, "I got lost in excess." That single line summed it all up: power, indulgence, control. Prosecutors detailed how he used influence and fear to hold his inner circle together, backed by testimony describing private encounters where loyalty slipped into exploitation. His conviction on transportation-related charges may have seemed lighter than expected, but the symbolism hit hard. A man who once commanded stars now wakes up inside an 8x10 cell at MDC Brooklyn. And the contrast is brutal. While Diddy stares at concrete walls, Snoop wakes up to boardrooms, family dinners, and a brand spanning music, gaming, and media. It's a jaw-dropping reversal that has the industry whispering, did Snoop outplay the same machine that once threatened to consume him? Or is he simply the latest survivor who learned when to trade silence for safety? Either way, his grip on death row, his network deals, and his spotless public image have made him one of the last untouchables of his era.
Diddy, obviously just starting out his time, well, not just starting out, but starting out his official sentence since being sentenced not too long ago. And I think suffice to say, it's not going well so far.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, he's got 4 years and change that he's going to ultimately have to serve, although he has served already a year as he awaited his trial and then went through his trial.
But the whispers aren't stopping. Reports suggest that even from behind bars, Diddy has been quietly talking to journalists, hinting he might name names if it helps shorten his sentence. And if any of those names brush against Snoop's inner circle, this saga could explode all over again. At the same time, Shantae's upcoming memoir, Paid the Cost to be the Boss Lady, promises to unpack her life under the spotlight, and the timing couldn't be sharper. Whether she shuts down the rumors or leans into them, one chapter could flip the narrative overnight. Insiders also warn that Snoop's cooperation with federal officials may go far beyond the Diddy case. The FBI's Entertainment Crime Unit is said to have active files on other major figures, some tied to the same events now under scrutiny. If Snoop still has an open line to investigators, the next wave may already be forming. As one former label exec put it, if he helped once, he can help again, and everyone knows it. That fear is already reshaping the industry. Artists are distancing themselves from both camps, unwilling to be caught in whatever drops next. This isn't just one man's downfall, it's a reckoning. A generation built on secrecy is learning that secrets don't stay buried, and at the center of it all stands Snoop Dogg and Shantae Brodus, two pillars of legacy and loyalty, holding truths powerful enough to shake the culture they helped create.
We all know that. I have to say, I'd never heard of this movie, and I have little kids. It was called Lightyear from 2022. I have absolutely no problem with the content. Like, he had a problem with the content in that movie. I have no problem at all. I thought that was presented as a brief history part of this movie. It wasn't a big part of the movie, and gay couples exist, and gay marriage is legal, and I found it all completely unproblematic. That said,
still, too many questions remain. Did Snoop help bring down Diddy to protect his wife or to secure his empire? Was Shantae the betrayed partner or the quiet architect behind the entire play? Do Suge Knight's claims about the death row takeover connect to the same web of influence that ensnared Diddy? And if Snoop handed the authorities what they needed once, who could be next? In an industry fueled by fame and silence, power never disappears. It just changes hands, and this story is far from over. Messages are still buried, testimonies still sealed, and voices still afraid to speak. Diddy's fall may have closed a chapter, but the book is wide open. So the real question is this: when the truth finally surfaces, will Snoop still look like the hero, or will he become the next headline? Drop your thoughts below, because in this world, loyalty is currency, and someone's account may be about to overdraft. Until next time, stay locked in. This storm isn't done yet.